If you've been watching videos or reading online, really anything about D&D, trying to make your games more interesting and more fun, you will have come across the concept of agency, right? This idea that your characters that should be given choices, that your players should be given choices in the game rather than being sort of steered and dominated and what we call railroaded along. And that's true, and that's great. But actually, there are three really key elements to making games highly satisfying for your players. And no, the other two are not finding loot and avoiding being killed. Actually, all this stuff comes out of sort of organizational psychology, performance psychology, and it's just as applicable to making games fun and interesting and motivating players toward their goals as it is to our real lives. So in this video, I want to break the three down, show you what they are, show you how you can apply these three key elements of motivational psychology just to make your games more satisfying and more fun. So first and foremost, credit where credit is due. All of this work comes from a book called Drive by a man named Dan Pink, who very nicely lays out these three key elements and all the research behind why these elements are so important to creating motivation, to creating drive, as the book says, in people's work and in their lives. And the three key elements actually make a nice little mnemonic. If you want to amp up your games, right, increase the amperage, AMP is all you need to remember to kind of look at these three key principles. So the A in his book stands for autonomy. It's very similar to agency, but I think there's even a tiny bit more to kind of put on it and to flesh out. So we want to have choices, of course, and we don't want to be micromanaged or railroaded by the DM, yes. But also we want self-direction. And self-direction means we have a sense of identity beyond just the party. Right? We're not just a tag-along. We're not just a character with a bag of traits or attributes that kind of gets dragged along by the rest of the party. We are our own person and have our own self-direction, or our character does anyway. There's a corollary to all of this, and there's an important thing to point out, which is that we also want our choices to matter. Not only the good choices, not only the positive ones that go well for us, but we want the consequences of our choices to come back to us. And interestingly enough, players really want the consequence of their choices, even the negative ones. They want to know that if they do something really wild and crazy, they're going to get really wild and crazy consequences, right? The plot's just not going to chug along, as before, sort of ignoring or sidelining these big actions, these big activities. So it's really important that along with the autonomy, along with free choice, comes the consequences that come back to the players. Toddlers are like these little kids, right? They actually want to know kind of where the guardrails are. They'll push things out. They'll try stuff. They'll be quote unquote naughty. And, there's nothing weirder and more terrifying, frankly, than if you kind of ignore that. Instead, if you put in the boundaries, you say, look, here's the consequences of your actions. Here's a response to that. They kind of actually feel better. They feel significant. They feel like I exist in this world, right? I exist, and my consequences, the consequences of my actions, come back to me. So for your players to feel like their characters exist in the world, they have to have choices and they have to have the consequences come back. That's, to me, what autonomy really is. The M stands for mastery. This is one I think we often forget in the game. You want to be good at something. We all want to be good at stuff. Yeah, you may want to be a hero, but even if you don't, if you have this more kind of chaotic, neutral, ambivalent character, they still want to be good at stuff. They still want to be good, as in good at skills and abilities and talents and certain things that becomes kind of their thing, right? They want to be good in the team in a certain role, like they're the healer or they're the tank or whatever. And they want to be able to have skills that nobody else does that differentiates them, right? That gives them also that kind of sense of autonomy. They want to know things. Younger players especially want to know things, right? In a world where they're growing up and everyone else is feeding stuff to them, it's an amazing thing to empower them with certain knowledge that they alone, know about the world or about the game. And you don't always have to be the best to have a sense of mastery, but you want to have a sense that you're always developing, that you're far from that beginner state that you maybe started out in now. You're good at something, and you're good at something that matters, right? Something that's meaningful to yourself and to others. And that's what mastery is about. The P in AMPS is purpose. Purpose, there's got to be a reason, right? There's got to be a reason that you're doing what you're doing in all of this. And very often, I think DMs really can struggle with this one and have almost existential moments about, how do I give the party a sense of purpose? And there's a really easy answer, which is you got to ask them. You got to ask them what gives you a sense of purpose as a player, what gives your characters a sense of purpose. Again, I did a whole video about using surveys. I love surveys. I love structuring the questions a little bit to get back answers from my players that inform me about how I can give them a sense of purpose in the game. It doesn't ruin the game. It doesn't spoil the magic. Far from it. It allows you to create the magic altogether. So ask your players, what's a purpose that they're going to connect with? What's something bigger than their individual character that could be going on? And the sort of 4 tiers that get spelled out early on in the player's handbook, the 4 kind of levels or tiers of play, and the concerns that go with those, right? That you're kind of starting out with local concerns, what's up with the village, and expanding out to, sort of interplanar, big scale problems that you could be tackling, is a great progression or a great example of a purpose progressing over time, getting bigger. But it's got to be something significant to the players and to the characters. Interesting enough, Dan talks also about what's not effective, which is these external rewards that we thought were so significant, the bonuses and the punishments and all of these kind of things. What he calls carrots and sticks, right? The carrots being positive things and the sticks being the punishments or the negative things. And when you think about D&D at its most basic level, winning loot is a kind of carrot, and avoiding death is the ultimate stick, right? Death and losing your character altogether is kind of the ultimate stick. And so, yes, that's kind of the baseline maybe as a motivator, but when you want to really level your games up to be more kind of significant and deep and interesting, you can start to look at this AMP principle. DMs, ask your players, are you getting all 3? Right? Players, consider which aspect here you may want more of. Talk to your dungeon masters. This is kind of a framework in a way for debugging. Right? If the game is starting to feel stale or a bit rote, or you just guys kind of feel like you're grinding away over the same territory, have a look at these 3, right? Do you really have a sense of free choice and an impact in the world? Do you have that autonomy? Do you really have a character that's developing and getting better and better at something, and the satisfaction of getting better at over time? Do you have a clear sense of purpose? Does it feel like the character's actions and the fact that they're developing is mattering in a meaningful way in the world? If not, have a look. Look at what you can do. Bring your creative powers to the AMP principle and start to create more of that in your games. It's not just corporate HR departments or individuals trying to find a more and more satisfying career, but really this kind of psychology applies universally to people doing anything, including playing a role-playing game. So if you want more games that are more kind of satisfying and interesting than looting bodies and leveling up, which is fun in itself, by the way, don't get me wrong, consider these principles, the AMP, the autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and how you can apply this kind of thinking into your own games. I guarantee that already thinking this way has helped me tremendously to realize how I can support my players in feeling like they have a significant, powerful impact and like they're playing one of the games of their dreams, right? That's the ultimate, I think, experience for any DM. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Curious your thoughts on this approach. And as always, if you like this kind of thinking and want to get more, please do remember to subscribe. See you next week.